And we now return to South Africa and get you more perspective on Nelson Mandela and his legacy. I'm joined live from Johannesburg by Farai Mubaiwai, an African feminist and youth leader. Farai, thank you for joining us here on CGTN. We've seen Obama speak at the Nelson Mandela lecture. So what's your take on the difference in leadership between former President Obama and President Trump?
So I think in analyzing that question, it's important to understand where I am coming from. As an African youth, what do these two presidents and their different leadership styles mean to me, and what can I take from it? And I think the two angles in which I want to answer the differences between their leadership is from the angles of what has been their impact on the African continent, and also from the angle of looking at what has been their impact with gender and women empowerment. So if we take a look at the impact on the African continent, we can see that with President Obama, he did so much more to not only nurture good relationships with African leaders, but to also nurture good governance amongst Africans. And we see this in the YALI program, which is the Young African Leaders Initiative program that he created, which has seen thousands of young Africans being equipped with tools and skills to be able to take home to their respective countries and lead. Trump, on the other hand, has had a very questionable relationship with African governments and also his whole perception of Africa as a whole. We've seen this in various comments that he's made, and also the fact that he hasn't been engaging as much with African leaders. Now, if we look at their leadership from the angle of gender, we can tell that in Obama's leadership, right, he really spearheaded women empowerment, and he was really instrumental in that. Trump, on the other hand, has been very questionable in the decisions that he has made regarding women empowerment and the comments and actions that he has displayed. Right. So definitely it's about comparing their leadership and analyzing what I can take back.
Well, Farai, those are two very different leaders there and different comparisons between them. But today we are celebrating a third one. As a youth leader, though, how important is Nelson Mandela's legacy for young people in South Africa?
Nelson Mandela truly believed in the abilities of young people to be the change that they have been waiting for. He always made these comments about how he admired the relentlessness of young people. And I think that just really brings to what's super important today as we celebrate his birthday, his centenary. It's that young Africans and our voices need to be prioritized. We need to increase youth participation within Africa, particularly because we have an increasing youth demographic. At present, 50% of the African population are under 18. And this means that we need to be instrumental in equipping young people with the skills and the tools today so that they can solve complex problems tomorrow. And I believe that throughout Mandela's legacy, he emphasized the need to empower young people with these skills and tools, to empower young people with knowledge. And too often on the African continent, we see really old leaders that are so out of context with this emerging youth demographic.
And we've been focusing on Mandela's legacy, but he was one man among many men and women who helped liberate South Africa. So how important is it, though, for us to remember the legacies of other struggle heroes like the recently deceased Winnie Mandela?
Absolutely. So as you can see, I'm wearing my duk in honor of Winnie Mandela, because for me, she was an incredible leader, and not just for me, for so many other South African women. She has shown us resilience and power and effort, and I think that it's so important that we understand that for change to come does not happen in isolation. Change comes from collective action. And if there's one thing I think our South African education system needs to improve upon, it is how we are taught the history of our country. It is acknowledging the work of your Winnie Mandela, Oliver Tambo, Steve Biko, and Nelson Mandela, all as a collective who contributed to the country that we have today.
All right, Farai Mubaiwai, thank you very much for joining us here on the program.